Hi there, it's your brother Buckeye Doug Daniels, the Brother Buckeye broadcast. Took me 3 hours to write today's show, and this is the third time I've attempted to do it. Let's hope I don't stumble. If you're watching this, I must have done better on this third try. Here comes the picks. I'm going to try to do this fast. Illinois over Kansas. Game is in Kansas, and most are picking the Jayhawks to cover, possibly even win. But I really love the new quarterback, Luke Altmaier. I believe that's his name. So I'm going with the Illini. By the way, it's Illinois, not Illinois, unless you're talking in the possessive. Indiana over Indiana State should not be close. Louisville over Murray State should not be close. Vanderbilt over Wake Forest, but Wake Forest will cover. Bulldogs, as in Georgia, over Ball State. Why are they playing? Come on. Ohio State, a 41-point favorite over the Penguins of Youngstown State. I think this could be one of those 73-0 or 77-0 wins. Maybe because it's a Jim Tressel joint, they will pull way off by the middle of the third quarter. Even then, I think it should be something like 57-3. Ohio State should cover. There were no odds that I could find regarding Penn State and Delaware, so I'm picking the Lions to win by 30 or 40 points. Notre Dame is favored by just 7.5 over NC State. It's a Wolfpack home game. Take the Fighting Irish to win and cover. Utah and Baylor were 2 of the 8 games I lost last week. Utah is a 7.5 point favorite. And, go Utah. Beat the Baylor Bears, okay? Kansas State over Troy. Troy in the past has been a giant killer from time to time. Don't think that's going to be happening this week. Colorado is favored by 7 over the Children of the Corn. What I know is Nebraska is on the road to Colorado. They don't have much of an offense. Their defense seems to be okay. Colorado has a great offense. They have Coach O, not much of a defense. I think Colorado wins and covers, and the hype train goes on. Delaware State versus Army. I didn't even know there was a Delaware State. Barely know that there's a state of Delaware. I did pick Army to lose to Louisiana Monroe. That did happen. There's no line on this particular game. Army will win. Purdue versus Virginia Tech. I've got Virginia Tech winning. What a terrible schedule for Purdue to play a team like Fresno State, and I picked for Fresno State to win that one. Then they go to Blacksburg, which is always a tough place to win. I think they lose, or it's just not going to go well. Then they host the Orange Men next week. Syracuse is playing really well, at least based on that first game. So I think Perdone could start off 0-3, which would not be good for Ryan Walters. Boston College lost to Northern Illinois. That demon will be exercised with a win over Holy Cross this week. James Madison and Virginia really liked Dolly Madison's cakes. Tasty. So I'm taking James Madison. Georgia Tech played Louisville close. South Carolina State has lost 2 already. This could get ugly. Rambling Wreck live up to their name. Not going to make this one official because I couldn't find a line on it. Central Michigan made Mel Tucker's Michigan State look great. New Hampshire won their game. So I'm going to go with New Hampshire in this one, okay? Eastern Illinois shut out Indiana State, which is good news for Tom Allen's job security, unless the Hoosiers do less than that. Bowling Green came up a 10-8 split short of an upset over Liberty. So let's go with the Pins of Bowling Green over the Panthers. Now, isn't that a Wildcat as well? Lots of Wildcats. There are no odds, so I increased my chances of having a great week when there's actually no line. Charleston Southern and Clemson, why? Is there anyone in college football more dreadful than Dabo Swinney? One day I'd love to see Jimbo Fisher, or who I call Jumbo, and Dabo Sweeney play in a bowl game. Dabo versus Dumbo, or Jumbo. It's a scoreless tie after 4 quarters and 10 overtimes. Clemson wins this Charleston Southern game, I guess. I mean, they did lose the Duke by, 25? Crazy stuff. Kentucky, you guessed it, Wildcats again. They play Eastern Kentucky. The Kentucky Colonels got chicken fried by the Cincinnati Bearcats, which aren't cats or bears, 66-13. Don't you just love the SEC scheduling? SEC. There's no line. Lexington wins by 50 over KFC. BYU and Southern Utah. For fuck's sake. Had never heard of these Southern Utah Thunderbirds until they almost upset the Arizona Desert Devils. BYU barely beat Sam Houston State, which makes me wonder about the state of Cougar football. Cougars. That's a Wildcat too, isn't it? I mean, if Southern Utah tames the Wildcats of Provo, there'll be a lightning strike somewhere sacred, if you know what I mean. So let's go Thorbirds. If you follow that line of wordplay, you are very smart. Michigan and UNLV, QRSLMNOP. Way to go, Warren. You docked Harbaugh $4 million a few years ago in salary and then created a schedule that offered you a fantastic return on investment. The Rebels, without a cause, lose in the great wide open of the Giant Turd Bowl, while in typical skunk bear fashion fail to flush and cover the stinky spread, which is Ann Arbor. Did you catch all that? And those 37.5 points. What I'm saying is Michigan wins, but I don't think they win by 37.5 points. Told you, it took me 3 hours to write this. Texas A&M versus Miami of Florida. This is actually, some named teams. Not a bunch of directional games. Texas A&M and Miami of Florida. Both teams were served bacon-wrapped scallops. In week 1, Aggies, which is a cutesy name for agriculture. Hurricanes are what might, eventually, sometime in the near future, rid us of Florida Man. I like my vegetables. Jimbo wins. Indoor covers, which ruins my day because I don't like that guy. Ugh. That whole Jameson Winston, Jimbo Fisher, Florida State chapter of college football, I still can't quite get that out of my mouth or mind. Western Michigan versus Syracuse. WMU struggled to beat Pope Francis, St. Francis of Pennsylvania. Who knew? Syracuse had a squeaky clean performance versus Colgate, 65-0. The Orangemen have too much juice for the Broncos. Are you catching all this? This is good stuff if you love wordplay and references. Juice, Orangemen, O.J. Simpson, Ford Broncos, squeaky clean Colgate, Procter & Gamble, Pope Francis, St. Francis. And then the last line of this one, and that's no pulp fiction. Get it? Oranges, pulp. I mean, their mascot is like a big orange, isn't it? All right, we continue. Iowa State. Hog shit. This slop fest means nothing outside of Hooterville and Petticoat Junction. I like Hooters more than Petticoats. And Eddie Albert's character's name was Mr. Douglas. I'm Douglas. So the Hawkeyes are my pick. Ole Miss and Tulane. Another good game on paper. They're ranked number 20 and 22 respectively. The Rebels showed no mercy to Mercer. SEC. And the Highwaymen of Tulane's bested South Alabama. Now, my gut says go with the Confederates, but I hope the Green Wave drown the hotties in crawfish and gumbo. The Wave cover, and if there's a God, win. UTEP at Evansville State. Evansville State. That's Northwestern. Evanston State. The Wildcats, there they are again. Why? Apparently no one cared that Kentucky called dibs on Wildcats. Dave Revson made a pretty good point. Although Northwestern did lose several members of their freshman class when all that stuff happened in July and August, only one scholarship player that Fitzgerald would have been playing with left and transferred. So this team that looks so bad versus Rutgers is the team he would have been coaching minus some freshmen. Not a good look. Cats Fitzgerald. Trademarked. Why wasn't he ever called Cats Fitzgerald? I never once heard anyone refer to Pats Fitzgerald as Cats Fitzgerald. I mean, he was Mr. Wildcat. He was a two-time Defensive Player of the Year. He played for Northwestern when they went to two big bowl games in, I think, 95, 96? One was the Rose Bowl. I mean, he was Mr. Wildcat. How come no one ever called him Cats Fitzgerald? I don't know. Anyway, I'm trademarking it. Let's see. Oh, yeah. To think that Michigan came after him twice. Think about that. After Rich Rodriguez, Michigan tried to hire Pats Fitzgerald. I don't know if they pursued him the first time in 2007, but they definitely pursued him before they went with Brady Hoke. And they definitely pursued him before Jim Harbaugh called up whoever the athletic director was at the time and said, I want to come home because they're about to run me out of San Francisco. He's famous for that, isn't he? Calling up people and getting gigs right before the rug is pulled out from under him. Okay, so can UTEP beat the Big Ten's bottom feeder? Yes, the Miners will find silver and gold at the Mistake by the Lake Saturday. Chicago's team is favored by 2. Oh, what a year. This could be a 0-12 year following a 1-11 year for Northwestern. You're not old enough to remember this, but during the 1980s, Northwestern was the worst team in college football. I mean, they were worse than like Cornell and Villanova and William and Mary. That's how I think they lost like 30 some games in a row. Those days may be here again. The Spiders of Richmond versus the Spartans of East Lansing. Now, one of my favorite new wave rock groups of the early 80s was a group called Spider with Holly Knight as their chief songwriter. She wrote hits like The Warrior for Scandal, Change for John Waite, The Best for Tina Turner, Ragdoll for Aerosmith, Invincible and Love is a Battlefield for Pat Benatar, Love Touch for Rod Stewart, Never for Heart, Obsession for Animotion, and hanging on a heart attack for herself when she was with a group called Device. Okay. And the Spider songs included some of the above. And my favorite was one called It's a Mystery, A New Romance. My first full year in radio was 1980, and I was at a station in Waverly, Ohio called WXIZ. 100.9 WXIZ, The Rock. Great song. Great song. Now, what does the group Spider and the Richmond Spiders have to do with my pick? Nothing. Nothing at all. It just gave me the chance to love on Holly Knight. Holly. And the Knights, well, they are sort of kind of like Spartans. So take Sparty to win. Sparty to win. Miami of Ohio and Massachusetts, cue the Bee Gees. Oh, wait, most of them are dead, but Barry lives. The Minutemen outlast the Red Hawks. Texas State and UTSA, the Texas State Armadillos, Bobcats. Didn't they get the memo from Ohio U? No, just another Wildcat. I think they are unnecessarily rough to UTSA and win, but don't cover the 13.5 point spread. Beep, beep. Texas Southern and Toledo. Seriously, there's a Texas Southern too. The Rockets caged the Tigers, another Wildcat, and it's not close. The North take on the South in my state of origin, Illinois. It's the Huskies versus the Salukis, right? And as a boy who was Husky and a man who is still Husky, I'm going with the Northern Illinois Huskies over the Salukis. Although I do like Salukis. That's just kind of a neat name. Wagner and Navy. I wrote a joke for this one. Wagner and Navy. It kind of went like this. But I'm retracting it before I actually say it. Because it's really not a nice thing to say. As a Christian, it's not. So this is the way the joke was going to go. So Wagner takes on Navy. The only vessel Robert ever downed was Natalie. I kid, I'm just kidding. We all know who did that. The other actor. Nah, I'm kidding. It's just jokes. Anyway, Navy is not blue this week. They beat Wagner, and I have no idea where that is. Kent State and Arkansas, the Golden Flashes, had several players transferred to Power 5 teams in the offseason. That's why they're not going to be very good this year. They're 38-point underdogs, but damn it to hell, I say Clark Kent covers. Marshall, East Carolina, Huntington finds the bank closed versus the Fighting Ficklins. Ficklin Stadium is named after tobacconist, didn't even know there was such a word, James Skinner Ficklin, who died in 1955 at the age of 55, and that's all I've got to say about that. The third time's the charm, San Jose, after losing 2 games already, plays Cal Poly, the Nerds. They do win. Yeah, it's sometime in the not-too-distant future, the Nerds will have their revenge. All righty, Wyoming and Portland State. Let's see. Oregon beat the Vikings. Portland State, Vikings. What? 81-7. The Cowboys took care of the Texas Tech Raiders. Cowboys beat the Vikings on a Hail Mary. So you have to be like my age to remember Cowboys beating the Vikings. Hail Mary. The first time the word Hail Mary was used, Drew Pearson, cold game, Minnesota. Anyway, there will be no joy in Portlandia Saturday night. Wyoming wins big. Michael Penix gains style points against against the Tulsa Hurricane, where there's never been one, by the way, in case Caleb Williams stumbles in his quest to become as hailed as Sir Archibald Griffin from the Ohio State Buckeyes. The near future Big Ten member, Washington wins and covers. Austin pees down their leg. The Tennessee Volunteers win big. SEC, SEC, SEC. North Carolina, Appalachian State. Could this be the weasel of the weekend? I call upsets weasels because it was Appalachian State beating Michigan in 2007, which was at the time and probably still is the greatest upset in the history of college football. Now, North Carolina has Drake May. Appalachian State doesn't beat North Carolina, but I think they do cover. Lafayette and Duke, yikes. I'm just going to skip that joke. New Mexico State, Liberty, Liberty, Liberty. If there's a God, Aggies win. The Whitakers take on Duquesne. The Whitakers of West Virginia take on like a small division team from Pittsburgh. WTF. But Ohio State's playing Youngstown State, so I really can't Jones on the Mountaineers that much. But West Virginia wins, and they win big. I'm skipping over a bunch of slam dunk picks and just moving on for your time and my sanity. Cincinnati Pittsburgh whipped Wofford, and Cincinnati proved Southwest Ohio is better than Eastern Kentucky, also known sometimes as West Virginia. The game is being played in a stadium I cannot pronounce, and I won't try. Cincy is favored by 7.5. I'm going to regret this, but I'm taking the home team, Pitt, which used to play in a stadium I could pronounce. Anticipation, Heinz Field. So I'm taking Pitt in that one, even though my heart's with the Queen City Bearcats, which are neither bear nor cats. SMU in Oklahoma could be a good one. Sooners are favored by 15.5. Do the Okies cover the Mustangs, future members of the ACC? My mind says yes. My hatred says no. Hoping the once dead men walking, a reference to SMU getting the dead penalty from the 1980s, right away with a victory, and that Norman Fells. See, Norman is where Oklahoma is. Norman Fell was an actor on Three's Company. Norman Fells. See, yeah, I know some of these are really esoteric. I think Oklahoma is going to cover that 15.5, but I would love SMU to do a little damage there. Skipping over a lot of games that just don't matter to anybody except for those who attend. Here are some quick hitters, machine gun style. Boise State bounces back with a win over UCF. I shouldn't make that pick because Boise State did not look good, but this is on the blue turf, and I just believe the Spuds win that one. The Ducks quack the Texas Tech Raiders of the lost season. Houston boils rice. Mizzou, as in Missouri Tigers, another Wildcat, is too much for Middle Tennessee State. Coastal Carolina is better than Jacksonville State. Western Kentucky enjoys the calm before the Buckeye Storm with a win over the Christians of Houston. It's actually Houston Christian. I did not know that. UConn, again, I should not pick this one, but I think UConn beats the odds with a hard-fought win over Georgia State. I shouldn't pick that one. I'm just going to. Graceland beats Arky State. That's Memphis over Arkansas State. Arkansas State looked horrendous last week. Mississippi State over another Wildcat team. Good Lord. Wisconsin over Washington State. The Wildcats, they're the Cougars, will be competitive until the end, but the Fighting Fix and that run game will prove to be too much. Although my son did go to Washington State, and, it wouldn't kill me if I saw. I mean, Pullman's an interesting place to play, especially in late November, which this is not. If this was a late November game, which it would never be, anything's possible when it starts to sleet and snow in Pullman in late November. But I think Wisconsin should be good, although Washington State did beat Wisconsin in Madison last year. But I'm taking Wisconsin. Take Rutgers over Temple. Rutgers at 2-0. Who would have thunk it? UCLA will win and cover over San Diego State, I think. Normally, I would have said San Diego State would at least cover, but again, these are gut feelings. I think Kelly and this quarterback they found will find a way to cover there. Maryland beats Charlotte and covers. The Gophers of Minnesota beat Eastern Michigan, but they don't cover. Gophers win, don't cover. There are a bunch of other crap games I'm going to pass through here. Florida State beats Southern Mississippi, but doesn't cover. Now, you heard me say that. I know Florida State looked good versus LSU. I have yet to watch the replay. But again, this is a gut feeling that I've got that Florida State will win but will not cover versus Southern Mississippi. Oregon State way over UC Davis. Fresno State stomps Eastern Washington. Oklahoma State loses in the desert versus Arizona State. In the How Did We Get So Bad So Fast Bowl, Auburn feels like it is at Disneyland as they discover that the Bears are of no necessity. I don't even remember what bear I'm referring to there. Oh, the California Bears. That's right. So the SEC travels to California to play a team that was so bad, the Big Ten said, no, thank you. No, thank you. But the SEC said, okay. Let's take the California Bears. Let's have them fly all the way across the country to play us. USC continues to do what they do. They're going to kill the Cardinals of Stanford. However, I don't believe they cover. Yeah, this is just another gut. I don't know why I'm making all these unobvious picks. I think USC's been on a roll, but I don't think their defense is very good. This is the last go-round for, the Pac-12. And I think some of these teams that were left and basically sloughed off are going to put up some fights. So I think Stanford, it's a big point spread. I think Stanford covers. USC, though, still wins. And Caleb Williams, unless he, he could literally be joining Archie Griffin as the only two-time Heisman Trophy winner. Unless Marvin Harrison has something to say about that. But after last week, 2 catches and 18 yards isn't going to cut it. So we get to the last one and the biggest one. It is Texas and Alabama in Tuscaloosa. The Tide are a touchdown favorite at home. Texas is led by former Buckeye. Yes, you and I know. We will claim him as a Buckeye if he wins the Heisman, especially if he keeps Caleb Williams from winning it. The national championship and becomes the highest paid player in NFL history, like Joe Burrow. None of that is likely, but nevertheless. Quinn, we hardly knew you, yours. I have no real reason to pick the Longhorn Steakhousers over the leaders of the Laundromat, but I'm going out on a limb. In fact, last third of this broadcast has been going out on the limb. I'm going out on the limb anyway, and it's the Crimson Tide who sing the Deacon Blues this time. Oh, and sue me if I've played too long. Going with Texas to at least cover the point spread, and if they win, even more joy in Pataskala, Ohio, where I do this broadcast. It is the Brother Buckeye broadcast. These are the picks. I will do a recap of this. At least I'll tell you how I did. Last week it was 44-52. And this week I don't expect to do nearly as well because unlike last week, I went with a lot of upsets, which probably aren't going to happen. So go Buckeyes. We're getting closer to the game. Just going a little bit further into the Youngstown State game, I think Kyle McCord is going to throw for over 300 yards. I think Devin Brown plays enough to throw for at least 150. I think Chip Trainum is going to get near 100 yards. I think Henderson's going to get near 100 yards. I think Williams will get at least 60-ish. I think Hayden will get 40 to 50, and I think Pryor, if he's healthy, will get in and get about 30, maybe catch some balls. Harrison's going to have a big game. The game is going to be over by halftime. Going to see a lot of third and fourth teamers and walk-ons, which is why the team may give up some points. I picked Ohio State to win 73-0, but if it ends up being 63-13, that's a possibility as well. That's the Pick'em Show. Go Buckeyes. If you kind of like my esoteric, dry humor, if you like talking Buckeyes and just, seeing a different face and hearing a different voice, other than the usual suspects, subscribe, like, comment below, tell your friends. We're just having fun here, man. Life is too short. And I got to tell you, I've had a rough time recently with a lot of stress. I'm seeing the doctor tomorrow. I'm probably going to get some pills. It has been a rough time for me. And this little thing that I do, I'm doing for my sanity. Because I love college football. I love Ohio State. This is fun. So there's no seriousness with this. I'm not going to get upset at the players, at the coaches, like most of these other guys do. Do you ever notice that? Do you ever watch those other guys? And it's like if the team doesn't do what they all predicted in their bold predictions, they're upset for looking wrong. I don't give a damn. Life is too short. It's way too short. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. I enjoy you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Make it a great weekend. Bye-bye.